everyone, and welcome back to Full Recovery. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to subscribe to these videos. And so far, our schedule has been twice a week, airing on Tuesdays and Fridays. I have some news about an updated schedule, an adjusted schedule, now that life is starting to get back to normal for us here. In case you're new here, where have you been? We've been waiting for you. But my name is Amy Bassick, and I live in Brewster, New York. My husband is a pastor in Danbury, Connecticut, and life is slowly starting to get back to normal for us here. And so this week, there will still be 2 videos, and that will continue for 2 more weeks. After that, we will go down to once a week, and then I'll see how I can handle that, easing back even further into the normalcy of life. I hope this time has found you focusing on the Lord, focusing on His presence, His involvement in your life. And my goal in starting this channel in the first place, back when quarantine and isolation started, was that we would all make a full recovery going through this, and then perhaps even investigating further areas in our lives where we need growth and help and healing. And I hope that you've been able to experience some of that during this time. It's been difficult for people. It's been difficult for those who are having major life events. I attended a drive-in baby shower just this afternoon. It's difficult to not be able to celebrate life events in the way that you want to, in the way that we're accustomed to. Those of you who have gotten married during this time, my heart has gone out to you, and I've prayed fervently for every single young couple that has been married during this time. It's been difficult. It's been quite an adjustment of plans and dreams, and I am so proud of so many young people in this time who have just said, hey, you know, it's just what's happening, but we're still going to be married, or we're still having our child, or all of these things that have come. And I'm so proud of so many of the young people that I know who are just bucking up under these circumstances. Pray for our country, pray for each other during this time. We need healing. We need to recover from this as a society, as a nation. I don't know that we'll ever go back to how things were before, and in some respects, I hope we don't. I was looking around. This afternoon happens to be a Sunday afternoon when I'm filming this video, and I was looking around this morning at so many of the faces of people in our church who have just said, you know, I'm so thankful to have church, what it means to have a pastor who prepares, and they walk in those doors ready to contribute as much as we can, socially distanced. And I don't like it any more than you do, but it's what we have to do right now. And I'm just grateful to be able to have church. I can't say I never will, but I can tell you that it is my goal to never take church for granted again. I am positive. I've been guilty of that. For those of you who don't know our story or our situation, we started our church 26 years ago almost, and we rented a VFW hall for 10 years, a little over 10 years. And when we were able to move into a building, I thought, I will never take this for granted again, the fact to be able to meet in a church and those things. And you know what? It wasn't super long before it wore off on me, the specialness of it and the awesomeness of it, having our own church building. But this has renewed my fervor for church and my appreciation for it. And I hope for you too. One of the goals I have in speaking anywhere or also beginning this channel was that those who have influenced me in life in some way would have a voice that maybe otherwise they might not have. I have told the story a few times, and I've written about it a little bit, But my mom was an evangelist wife for many years until my father left our family and left her to be a single mom of 4 kids. But I only ever heard my mom speak at an event on one occasion. My mom was a nursery director, Sunday school teacher. She loved kids, anything with babies or kids, she was there. But she was not comfortable being in the limelight. We used to travel some and sing with my dad. My mom had a lovely voice, but she didn't want to be in front of anybody. But I did hear her one time speak at a mother-daughter banquet for a church about an hour away from where we were living at the time. And I will never forget, she was speaking from a little chart, and it had an acrostic that spelled out mother. And she had M-O-T-H-E-R on the left, and then a statement by each letter on the right. And I will never forget, and I was just about 8 years old at the time, but I will never forget sitting there listening to her and realizing that she missed the letter O. And even in my little childish mind, I was screaming, go back, you missed O. But she never realized it until she sat down. And when she came to sit down by me, I said, Mama, you did a great job. She said, no, I didn't. I'll never do that again. I missed O. I missed a whole letter. I'll never do that again. And she didn't. The truth is, my mom had so much to teach and offer. And I am glad that on the first occasion when I was 27 years old that I had a chance to talk somewhere outside of our church, I began on that very first occasion to have my mom teach through me. And my mom just went to heaven a couple of years ago, but she has taught many women all over this country and in a couple of spots in the world without her ever having been there or ever having met those people. And that's going to continue as long as I'm alive. That's going to continue. But one of the goals I have is that you would know certain people that just because of the circles you run in or your life circumstances that you'd never have a chance to meet these people. And one of those people I'm going to talk to you about today. In fact, this is going to be over the next 2 episodes. I'm going to talk to you about this lady and the impact that she made on my life. So many of you who have heard me talk about this lady before have been texting me and messaging me or asking me in person, when are you going to talk about this? And so today's the day. I haven't made a peep about it before today, but I'm pretty excited that with you watching this video today, you're going to have the opportunity to meet this lady. A few years ago, we were having a big youth rally at our church, and we invited a college friend of ours and his family to come up, and that friend is Clint Fredericks. Clint Fredericks is a youth pastor in North Carolina. His wife Deb, their kids Tim, Tiffany, and Tabitha are phenomenal kids. They're grown-ups now. I shouldn't even call them kids anymore. But they're just a phenomenal family. They love the Lord, serve the Lord. And Brother Clint's a phenomenal preacher. And so before they were going to come up, he called my husband and asked, could we bring my mother-in-law up with us? She's never been to New York City, and we'd love to show her. If we have time while we're up there, we'd love to show her around. And so we said, of course, bring her. We'd love to take all of you down there. So my husband and I have a plan that if you had told me when I was a kid or a teenager that I'd be doing this, I would have said you're out of your mind. But my husband drives the getaway van, and I will take people to different sites or walk them through different locations, and then he'll pick us up somewhere else. Occasionally we'll have to take the subway to make that happen, but most of the time he just drives, and we'll talk about the place as we're going to it or pulling up at it, and then I will get out and show them around, and it works well for us, and it's a lot of fun. Well, on this particular day that we were going to take the Fredericks family and Deb's mom, whose name is Nancy Sherman, it was not the best day. It was a difficult day for many reasons, about which I will explain. But I want to point out to you first, before we get into this, a verse in the Bible that really just shocked my system the first time that I really remember reading it to process it in my own life. And that verse is this. It's Proverbs 18:14, which says, "The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, but a wounded spirit who can bear?" The spirit of a man or woman will sustain his or her infirmity. There are many kinds of infirmities. Of course, when we think of someone being infirmed, we think of them being ill or being incapacitated in some way. But there are mental and emotional infirmities that people go through as well. And the Bible is telling us here, our spirit can help us sustain us in those times. I want to talk about three women in the Bible whose spirits sustained their infirmities. The first one I'd like to talk to you about is found in Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 23, and it says, "By faith Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment." Now, we know that Moses' mother's name was Jochebed, and I view Jochebed as the Martha Stewart of the Bible. I mean, she was just incredible, incredibly crafty and creative. And the Bible says that Moses was such a good baby, and of course we know every newborn boy had to be thrown into the river or killed. And so Jochebed was torn between two decisions. She did not want to follow the law, but she would not kill her baby. And so she did what she knew to do for as long as she could. And then because she was this creative, ingenious woman, God put a little light bulb over her head one day and said, "Jochebed, there's something else you can do in that river besides drown or let the crocodiles get your baby." And Jochebed thought a minute and thought, you know what? Maybe he could float. I can keep the law and I won't kill my child. And she crafted this little basket and made it waterproof and put her little baby in that river. And of course we know what happened after that. But Jochebed was not afraid in her infirmity. She trusted in the Lord to see her baby through, and he did in a powerful way. The next woman I'd like to talk about, her story is found in Ruth chapter 1 verses 17 and 18. "Where thou diest will I die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part me and thee." When she, Naomi, saw that she, Ruth, was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. When Ruth's mother-in-law saw that Ruth was not going to change her mind, she said, "Okay, you can go with me, but just know I'm going back to my home country a different woman than when I left. But God will see us through this." And of course we know how Ruth's story ends. Marrying the most eligible rich bachelor, getting Rahab for her second mother-in-law, and being in the lineage of Jesus Christ himself. What an amazing story. But Ruth was steadfastly minded in her infirmity. Is it an infirmity to be a widow? You bet it is. But Ruth charted her course, being plugged into this God that she had just been introduced to not that long ago. She didn't know about him growing up. Now she knows. And she was steadfastly minded in her infirmity, not swaying. I'm going with you, Naomi. Nothing's going to change my mind. The last lady I'd like to talk about was really just a teenage girl when this story happened. And it's in Luke chapter 1 and verse 47. We'll start with 46. And Mary said, My soul doth magnify the Lord, and my spirit hath rejoiced in God my Savior. Now you might say, oh my goodness, what infirmity was Mary experiencing, for crying out loud? She was giving birth to the Son of God. You know, we glamorize these stories in the Bible because for many of them we know, well, they turned out okay. Everything was okay. It was all right. And it takes us about an hour for long stories, about 5 minutes for others, to read their circumstances and say, it turned out all right. But you understand that Mary became pregnant and she was not yet married. How scandalous was that? Being ripped apart by her community behind her back, or probably to her face or to her parents' faces. We certainly know that her own fiance was minded to break things off with her. And the truth is, he could have put her away, the Bible says, or he could have had her stoned. And of course, we know God sent an angel to him and in a dream and told him, do not do this. I am involved here. But Mary, just a young girl, the Bible tells us, her spirit rejoiced in her infirmity. If Mary is not the most perfect picture of the spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, I don't know who is. What a picture of how a resilient hope in God and a steadiness of spirit and faith in him can help you endure some difficult circumstances. What an example these three women are to me of how God and his spirit working in us and through us can help us to handle some of the most difficult circumstances of life. I mentioned my mom a few minutes ago. I have never known personally a stronger spirited woman than my mom. Her faith in God never wavered. We never stopped even going to church. My mom was served with divorce papers in the lobby of our church where my dad had served as an assistant pastor and principal of the school. But we continued to go back there to that church even though she was terribly embarrassed and received a lot of ridicule. I remember saying to her that day, because I was holding her hand when she got served, and I remember saying to her, well, I guess we'll never go back to that church, but my mom assured me, no, this is God's church. Of course we're going back. And we did. But her faith in God, her ability to see that you can't judge the character of God by the character of people. We drive our own cars of sin. God doesn't take the wheel from us. It helped me to forge my own faith in life and inspired me to make sure my own spirit is as strong as it can possibly be. I'm not perfect at it. I feel like my mom was pretty perfect at it. I am not, but it's a goal to let that be my MO and to have that be the way that I operate my life. Well, on this day that we were taking the Fredericks family and Mrs. Sherman to New York, we arrived in the city, and of course we live about an hour north. And so from the moment we get out of the van, I realize, oh goodness, everybody down here is wearing green. I had completely forgotten it was St. Patrick's Day. Well, if you know anything at all about New York, I don't know what other major cities are like on St. Patrick's Day, but you just don't want to be anywhere near New York City on St. Patrick's Day. It's just it's a zoo. So I notice everybody's wearing green and I think, oh boy, I'm just hoping we can get through the day without major incidents. So my husband and I, if we're not going to be able to get our guests out to see the Statue of Liberty up close and personal, there's a nice park right along New York Harbor that has sort of a brick bridge and an archway there, and you can go right down by the water and you get a beautiful view of the Statue of Liberty, and it's never crowded because not a lot of people know that it's there, and it's just stunning. Well, we took the Fredericks there, and I offered to take a picture of them in front of the fence there with the Statue of Liberty and all her majesty behind them. And so they were lined up, and Mrs. Sherman was there, and I'm standing there getting ready to take the picture. And the next thing I know, from out of nowhere, a guy on a skateboard lost control of it, and the skateboard clipped Mrs. Sherman in the left leg, and she started bleeding. It was not an easy just roll. I mean, he fell off of it, and the skateboard flung at her like a missile. And so we got her seated over on a bench area. Her son-in-law ran to get her some ice. And of course, my first reaction is, are you an idiot only on Saturdays? Or are you like this all the time? You know, to this young man who had lost control of his skateboard. And of course, he was apologizing and trying to, you know, and honestly, he probably was hurt too, but I was just focused on Mrs. Sherman. Well, we got her all cared for, and I'm just still steaming about it, you know, and Mrs. Sherman just looked at me. She said, Amy, it's okay. He didn't mean to do it. And besides, he was wearing a helmet. Well, I wasn't real sure what wearing a helmet had to do with his idiocy or non-idiocy, but I thought, okay, well, he was wearing a helmet. And the truth is, he was not a kid. He was probably in his early 20s. He just, something happened, whatever it was. He wasn't careful or he hit something. I don't know. But she got injured, but had the sweetest spirit about it. And I, who did not get injured, was looking to place immediate blame and inflict pain on the guy. And she was so sweet about it. Well, next, we went over to Wall Street, got a glimpse of the Wall Street Bowl. It's a little crowded, not too bad. But we decided at that point we were going to take the subway north into Times Square. My husband would drive the van and then meet us at the northernmost end of Broadway. And I believe that that's 52nd Street where he was going to be picking us up, maybe 51st Street. Somewhere north of Times Square. And so we go down into the subway, and I don't like the subway. I'll never get used to riding the subway. I'm just not a super big fan. I know I should grow up, but I just don't care for it. But there are times when it just makes the most sense to take it. So we get on the subway, and our oldest daughter, Catherine, goes to sit down, and I notice that she's just about to sit in a seat full of, well, I said it was St. Patrick's Day, right? And even though it was only about 10 o'clock in the morning, people were already imbibing, and someone had gotten sick on that seat. And she almost sat in it. I mean, so close. But we got her, you know, no, and got her away from it. Well, Mrs. Sherman almost sits in the seat because, you know, you're in a hurry and you're just trying to get on. And so in my memory, she didn't sit all the way down, but her dress got caught in it a little bit. And oh my goodness, I was mortified. Well, if you've ever ridden the subway in New York, you know, they're not going to wait for you to get cozy and comfortable. So we didn't even make it to a seat, and it took off, and we fell on the floor. And oh my goodness, I was feeling so awful, because here's this lady who just got a leg injured, and now we're on the floor of a subway. This is unreal. So we hop up in the seat, and I just looked at her and I said, Mrs. Sherman, I'm so sorry, and I wouldn't mind at all if you asked to just go home right now. We'll take you back. And she's like, are you kidding me? I'm on a subway in New York City. And we're sitting there in the seat, and I thought, did she just say what I think she said? She's like actually not griping about what is happening here. And then she went on to talk about how lovely the Statue of Liberty was, and how grateful she was that she finally got to see her. And I thought, well, I mean, she's all right, but you got your leg cut over there. And I mean, I was so tempted still to be stewing, but I couldn't, because she was so grateful to be experiencing all that she was. Well, we get into Times Square, and we come out of the subway, come up the steps, and as we're coming in, you know, Times Square, even at 11 o'clock at night, is just alive with people. Not right now, but typically it's just hopping all the time. It is the city that never sleeps. So we come out of the subway, and you're not going to believe me when I tell you this, but everybody who's there, my 3 kids can testify to these things are true. I'm not fibbing. You know those strollers that really people should have to get a CDL to drive? I think they're meant for joggers, for like jogger moms, and if you're into that. Anyway, I was into trying to get a shower and eat as a mom of babies. But anyway, if you're a jogger mom, you may have one of these strollers, but it has a big wheel in the front and 2 big wheels on either side in the back. And I promise you this happened. This jogger mom lady is trying to jog through Times Square, and I'm bringing up the rear, and I'm watching her try to jog there, and the Mrs. Charbonneau's in front of me a few feet, the Fredericks over here, and before I could say or do anything or stop it, that right wheel clipped Mrs. Charbonneau on the left leg, the same leg that was hurt at the Statue of Liberty. No apology this time. No, oh, I'm so sorry. She just kept on going. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This woman is like drawing the crazies of the crazies here in New York City today, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. And why is this happening? And, you know, really and truly making it more about me. Why does this have to be happening on a day when I'm here bringing somebody? And Mrs. Charbonneau just, you know, we stopped, cared for her leg, made sure she was okay. And she just turns around and she's like, would you look at all these sights? I have never seen anything like this. She was so overwhelmed by all the wonderful things that to me, it didn't even seem like she got bothered at all by a second attack on her left leg. Well, we kept going. We wanted to hit a couple of those, you know, souvenir shops in Times Square. And so we entered a store. And again, I understand you're watching this video, and I know you're not believing a word I'm saying, but it is the truth. We go into this tiny store that has the whole front of the store is plate glass. And it was a small one, so our kids and the Fredericks wanted to go to a bigger one up the street a little bit. And so I said, well, let me stay with Mrs. Charbonneau, and she can get whatever she wants, and then I'll walk with her. And honestly, I don't know why I offered to do that. Hadn't I already seen what my presence did on this day? Because I don't think anything had ever happened to them like this before. And I made a mistake. I was standing in the doorway, because it's St. Patrick's Day. It's New York City. It's crazy. And I'm just being entertained by all the people walking by. And the next thing I know, wham! And I thought, don't turn around. Just walk out the store. Don't look back. just get out of here. But I thought, no. Well, that plate glass I was telling you about had apparently just been cleaned not that long ago. And Mrs. Sherman ran right into that, thinking it was an exit. She hit her head. It was, I think she hit one of her hands like really hard because, you're exiting a store, you're just wanting to get out. And oh my goodness, my heart just went out to her and I thought, Lord, how much more can this woman take? So we walk out onto the sidewalk and I'm looking for a place to help her sit down. And of course, there's nothing around. And so I thought, okay, I've just got to get her up to the store where they all are, and then I'll tell Deb, and then that's it. I'm the causer of all of this. So I will remove myself. And so I get up to the store and Mrs. Sherman is there with me. And we walk in the store where they had said that they would be. And praise the Lord, right in the middle of the store, there was a stool, an empty stool. And it was like a choir of angels were hovering over it and light was illuminating on it. And it was, wow, here's the stool. So I said to Mrs. Sherman, I said, I want you to sit right here and don't move. And I'm going to go find Deb and I will bring her to you and it's all going to be okay. And then she said a statement that floored me and concerned me. She said this: if I could just get the chicken out of my purse, I'd be all right. And I thought, she cracked her head wide open when she hit that plate glass back in the store. I have got to get Deb right now. Because this is what I was picturing. I've got to get the chicken out of my purse. And so right away, my mind went to, it's just what I pictured. I've got to get a chicken out of my bag. And I thought, okay, this is code for something, but I don't know what. So I went to find Deb and I said, Deb, something bad happened again. She hit her head on a plate glass window. I'm so sorry, I wasn't watching. And I brought her in the store. I put her on the stool. And then she's telling me she's going to be all right if she can just get the chicken out of her purse. And please, come do something. And Deb, of course, started to chuckle. And we made it back to where her mom was sitting, where she had opened a baggie full of cooked chicken. She needed protein. And I believe she's hypoglycemic, and she needed some protein to help boost her energy. And she was just sitting there eating it. And she was okay, and nothing else bad had happened. And so Deb said, this is what she does. She carries this around with her when she needs a pick-me-up. And I said, oh, okay. But I learned some really valuable lessons that day. The whole ride home, not one time did I hear, in fact, that the whole rest of the trip, and they were with us on Sunday, and I've seen her several times since then. Do you know not one time has that dear lady ever mentioned any of those negative times that happened to her? Not once. Have I mentioned them? Yeah. In fact, I've mentioned them at just about every place I've been to speak, or when I get together with them and we want to relive those memories, we talk about it. But I've never heard her mention those negative times, not once. What she does mention is how much she loved seeing New York City, how much she appreciated finally getting to see the Statue of Liberty after all this time, how much she loved being here, and what a wonderful mother and grandmother and mother-in-law she is, and just godly Christian lady in general. And I learned some valuable lessons from her that day. Some of these I'm going to combine with a little bit of some of the lessons my mom taught me. But just her testimony that day, Nancy Sherman is a teacher who doesn't even realize it. She changed my life that day. And I want to talk about some of those lessons that I learned from her in the rest of this video. So lesson number 1, determine what it takes to pick yourself up and do it. That day, Nancy Sherman was prepared with what she needed to fix her health and the way that she felt. That was a great example to me, because while I was blaming other people for creating those negative circumstances, Nancy Sherman was looking for a place to be able to fix her own self without blaming what they had done. And getting the chicken out of her purse was her way of saying, I can fix me. I can't take care of everybody else who has offended me and hurt me in some way, but I can fix me. What a lesson that was to me that day. We're going to be hurt in this life. People are going to wound us intentionally and unintentionally. But it's going to be on us to rely on the supernatural healing that we need from our Heavenly Father. It's going to be up to us to do the things in this life that it takes to fix it for us. Other people may apologize 1,000 times for something, which is highly unlikely. Sometimes we're lucky to get one apology from anybody. Sometimes it's none, and you have to just go on with life without it. But somebody could apologize 1,000 times and still not repair the damage that they've done. Healing comes from God. And true forgiveness, and I don't even like to refer to it as forgiveness really, because God forgives us when we ask. But true forgiveness and healing comes when we say to the person, not to them even, but just from our hearts directed at them, I'm not going to hold you responsible for my healing, because I realize only God can do that. I'm not going to get bitter at you, but I am going to rely on God for my healing, because I need a supernatural act. I can't rely on a person to fix that for me. It's got to be a supernatural act of God. But when you are having a tough time, or you have been wounded, or you have been hurt, do you know what it takes to pick you up? Do you know what it takes to lift your spirit? Of course, right away, I think of good, godly, spirit-filled music. We play music a lot in our home, in our vehicles. It is definitely a game changer for your emotions. Listen to good music. Read good books. Of course, read the Bible. Talk to God. All of those things. If you need to talk with somebody with skin on them in order to pick yourself up, do that. But make sure they're a godly influence. Make sure they're not somebody that's down in the mire below you and trying to pull you down where they are. Talk to those who are going to edify you and lift you up. Do you need to do something as simple as do your nails, go for a walk, make a hair appointment, go shopping even, look online for new ideas for decorating? These things are all spirit lifters. And yeah, they're kind of practical things, but you know what helps you. Analyze those things and then put it into practice.